So if you've got a Bible with you today, we're going to be in Romans chapter 12. You can turn there, or you can go to southcrest.church/notes, and you can follow along there if you'd like to. Here's the thing, I guess I want to tell you first. My short, hot wife, Lori, used not to be my short, hot wife. She used to be my short, hot girlfriend. And then at some point, I saw the light. And I said, you know what, we should get married. And so one night, it was actually on Valentine's Day, I asked her if she would marry me. I've told that story before, and so you can go find it if you want to, but whatever. But here's I asked her, she said yes. And then we got married. And here's the thing is that it was just the two of us, right? And I had always lived with either my family or with a bunch of dudes. And so I had no idea what it was like to live with a wife. And so, and we moved. I mean, we moved like 1,200 miles away from where we grew up. And we moved there. I went to graduate school, and we had this tiny little apartment. And, so there were things that started happening that I just didn't know, right? Like, we would be there and say, like, I would get through, with a towel, and where a towel goes is on the floor, right? And so I would get done with it and just kind of drop it. And, and I don't know, a couple hours later, she might say, Arthur, and I'd say, what? And she says, is this your towel? And see, I'm thinking, that's a dumb question. Yeah, whose towel that is. That's my towel because that's where I put my towel. And she says, it doesn't belong here, right? And I'm like, well, where does it belong, right? And so I would just tell you that anytime if you're young and you're just getting ready to get married, or you're just married, and your wife calls your name and asks you, hey, is this yours? It's not that she has a learning problem. It's that you didn't do things so good, right? But I didn't know. Right? Like one night, I made some popcorn on top of the stove, and we had just been married, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks maybe, and somebody had given us this new set of cookware, and it was different than the kind of cookware that I'd ever had before. And so I popped this popcorn, and then, after I got through with it, I just set the pot down on the carpet and was just going to sit there and just, was watching TV, and I don't even know why I was sitting on the floor and eating popcorn, but I'm sitting on the floor eating popcorn. And then, so I got through, and I said, well, I'm going to make some more popcorn, and got up, and the bottom of the carpet came with the pot. So, like I said, I'd always lived with dudes. So I just left. I didn't say, hey, Lori, I just burned a hole in the carpet, because there was a hole about this big, and it was just black right there. And she said, and so I just left. And so, she comes in there about 20 minutes later, and she says, Arthur, is this your hole in the carpet? I'm like, well, it's not yours. Why are you asking me? And so, I wasn't sure what to do. So and here's what you kind of do sometimes. Sometimes you just have to say, I'm sorry. And, you kind of back away a little bit, and don't show any fear, but just say I'm sorry. And you probably should go call an older man and say, what do I do? But because then what I did, well, the next day she was at work, and so I moved the couch, and I cut a hole in the carpet underneath the couch, and then moved the couch back in place, and took the piece of carpet I had cut in a circle and put it in the middle of the floor in the hole that I burned the night before, because I thought that was a brilliant idea. That didn't go very well. Didn't go very well. So I said, why do I tell you these things? Because, see, here's what we had to do. She was a believer and I was a believer, and she was willing to speak honestly into my life and to say, I love you. I see some things in your life that need some work. And I didn't always receive it real well, but I got to the point where I received it a little better. And you know what? And she would let me speak into her life. And sometimes she didn't like that so much that I would speak into her life a little bit, but she got to where she would receive that better. And see, and it was just the two of us. And see, and honestly, I was in grad school, and so everybody around us was pretty much the same kind of person. They were all newlyweds. We're all living in, this married housing kind of situation that the school had. And so nobody really knew what to do. And nobody was thinking, oh, I need to find somebody who's a little older, a little bit more experienced, a little more godly about how to do marriage. We didn't even think about that. And so, but what we did is we were very, very honest with one another, and we loved one another and talked with one another about the things that were going on in our lives. And that, we weren't intentional about doing it at the time. We didn't realize that's what we're doing. But that is a really incredible picture of how all of us as Christ followers are supposed to live in a relationship with one another. We've got to be willing to talk with one another, encourage one another, be honest with one another, because that's the only way we're going to get to be the people that God created us to be. And so in the midst of all these things that we've been going through for the last 2 months, a lot of us have realized, you know what? I've taken relationships for granted. And I didn't think I needed anybody except my immediate family. And then you realize, wow, I really need some connection. I mean, even the most extreme introverts are starting to think, you know what? I need to be connected with some other people. And so today I want to encourage you, lean in with me just a little bit. Because a lot of us have said things like, hey, listen, when this thing's over, this is what's going to be different in my life. And over and over and over again, the people that I've talked to, and I say, hey, listen, what do you miss the most? And they tell me, people. I miss people. So what steps can you do now so as we move out of this pandemic situation, whether it's in the next week or two or in the next couple months, however it happens, how can you be ready to be in connection and community with people outside of your immediate family, because you're going to need them again. This is not the only time in your life you're going to need people like that. So let's look at this for just a minute. So I'm in Romans chapter 12, and he says this, Paul writes this, he says, let love be genuine. Now, when he says genuine, he's talking about something that is real, that is authentic, that is natural, not acquired. So it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm going to go get some of this over here. So no, let it be genuine because Christ is in you, and let the love of Christ that's in you be genuine in the love towards others. And he says, not only that, it means back to the original, back to the way that God intended us to be. You can read in Acts chapter 2, starting in verse 42 through 47, and it talks about the New Testament church and the early church and how they loved one another and took care of one another and prayed for one another. And originally, that's how it was supposed to be. From the very beginning, Christ followers took care of other people who were Christ followers. And you know what else we did? We took care of people who were hurting. We took care of people who were lonely, who were scared. I mean, the people who took care of orphans and widows, culture disregarded them, and Christ followers came in and said, we'll take care of them. Christ followers are the ones who started hospitals. We've always taken care of people who are far from God, and also those people who are already Christ followers. That's always been a big deal to us. And very often, and this word genuine in this passage of Scripture refers to when a father who is a Roman would take his child, he'd put his child on his knee and say, as though to say, this is my child. And it was a sort of an authentication kind of moment that he would do this. Now, interestingly enough, I use the English Standard Version to teach out of. The English Standard Version translates it, let love be genuine, but it also could be translated, let love be without hypocrisy. Now, because hypocrisy is the opposite of genuine. Hypocrisy means to pretend. So I think that's the simplest definition. We can get into a whole lot of different things, but it's pretending. It's when you act like, in our context this morning, you act like that everything is great and that your life with Jesus is amazing. And every time you open the Bible, it's like, woo! And God speaks to you, and your marriage is perfect and harmonious, and your children rise up and call you blessed. And I mean, it's just one thing after another. And you say, everything here is just perfect, and everything is great, and everything is beautiful. But what happens is that's not very truthful. Because none of us really live lives like that. And we struggle sometimes with what's going on in our lives and what's happening. And unfortunately, we're usually we're just as good at pretending at church as we are when we're in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, or when we're going to the office, or when we're sitting in class, or going down to a ball game. We tend to say, hey, everything's okay. But let love be genuine. Let love be without hypocrisy. I mean, this whole passage just rests on that. It's about being genuine and not being fake. You know, because I'd make the argument that we can't receive love if we don't give love. And so when you're kind of pretending to care about somebody, and you're pretending that they're important to you, and you're pretending that it's important what they say, and you're pretending to listen, but your mind is really somewhere else, you're really not doing a great job of loving them. And if you don't give love, it's going to be really hard for you to receive love. That's why so many of us, when somebody does something for us, we feel incredibly awkward. You know, so somebody wants to give you something, you're like, I don't know what to say. So somebody encourages you, says, hey, you did a great job on that, and you're kind of like, and you kind of fumble around, but because you feel so awkward, because you can't receive it if you're not already giving it. Now, one of the things I think that how you can spot this is you beware of people that always seem to have an enemy. You know, but because when somebody's always saying, look, that person up there that's just not quite right, and he says that, you know, what they are doing is they are masking, pretending that everything's okay in their life. But what they have to do is they're hiding the things that are broken and messed up and jacked up in their life. And so as they're sort of hiding behind all that, what they do to make themselves feel better is that they're saying, well, at least I'm not as bad as that person. You know, and that's why, you know, we talk about somebody has a critical spirit. Someone's criticizing everybody. There's nothing that's ever right? I mean, it's like yesterday, somebody was telling me this morning, it was Matt, our campus pastor, he was telling me this morning that, you know, yesterday in Atlanta and flying over Noonan, the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels, you know, flew together, you know, and just, you know, over in formation over Atlanta yesterday. And some people were going, I can't believe they wasted the money on that. I'm like, you know, some people can find something wrong with everything. Now, maybe that was wrong, maybe it was right. Who knows? But but some people will find something wrong with almost everything. And here's the thing that I think is really important for us to remember as we're talking about this: let love be genuine. Is that Jesus was more concerned with heart than action. He's more concerned with what's going on here than action. Now, some of you go, whoa, he's concerned about actions too. We'll get there in a minute, so hang on. But he's more, because what did he say? He said, listen, he says, it says you shall not murder. And he says, but I'm telling you, if you hate someone in your heart, you've already committed murder. You know, he said, you have heard that it said, do not commit adultery. But if you've lusted in your heart. And Jesus was very concerned about what was going on in our hearts. And so he goes on, he says, let love be genuine. He says, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. So this is, you know, for those of you who say, but he's concerned about actions. Yeah, he is. So we should want to push back from things that are evil, and we want to cling or hold fast to those things that are good. That's really critical. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because these things are going to edify us, and of course we hold fast to those things that are good, right? I mean, and look, and if you, and I would make the argument when it says let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. I would make the argument that the weakest, most cowardly form of love is when someone is afraid to step into somebody else's life and say, hey, look, what you're doing right now is outside the bounds of Scripture. What you're doing right now is bad for you. If that the weakest, most cowardly form of love, if you say that, no, I'm not going to step in there and do that, that's weak. The cowardly form of love is you see somebody doing something that's destructive and you say, I'm just going to see how that plays out. Or you say, I'm going to pray for them. But here's how you pray. You get together with your friends, right? And you say, hey, we need to pray for Sally because you know what? She and her husband, are been saying some things to one another, and he's really treating her badly, and he's doing this and this and this and this and this. So we need to pray for him. No, you need to go talk to him, right? See, because look, when my children were small. Look, if my son goes in and opens up the cabinets underneath the sink and takes the Ajax and starts doing this, and I'm just going, I hope that works out all right. No, I'm going to say, whoa, stop, right? If I see one of my other son on the roof of the house, he says, I think I'm going to jump off the roof, Dad. I'm like, no, you're not going to do that. Right? I'm going to step in and do that because that's what I would do. And it's a weak, cowardly form of love to say, look, I'm not going to step in there and say something because we have to love one another enough to be honest with one another. And this is something we really struggle with as Christ followers because somebody said, well, you ain't supposed to judge. Well, actually, as Christ followers, we're supposed to speak into each other's lives, right? It doesn't mean that your life is perfect. And somebody may say, well, how about this in your life? You say, well, let's talk about it. Because what we're trying to do, we're trying to be more Christ-like. And this is really important to get to the point to where we love one another enough to be honest with one another. I can remember years ago, a guy told me, I was very early on in ministry, and this guy asked me a question. And so I answered his question, but I sort of answered it with a half-truth. And he just let me go. And he gave me about a week to see if I was going to do anything, and I didn't. I was like, well, he was never going to find out. And I just kept going. He came to me about a week later. He said, let me tell you something. He said, you're not going to preach for a while. I said, what are you talking about? He said, do you really want to be a half-truth kind of preacher? Where you're going to say one thing and kind of do something else? He said, is that the kind of life you want to live? Is that the kind of impact you want to have? Do you want to do something for the kingdom that's just halfway? Do you want to be able to speak boldly, or do you want to kind of just hide on what you're doing? And so, and that was hard to hear. But it was really important for me to hear, to know that he had something that he said, look, I love you so much. I'm not going to let you walk in this. And it was hard. It was hard for me to hear. I was too young, too brash, too arrogant. But I heard that and went, oh, okay, I should do something about this, right? So it says, let love be genuine. He says, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Men, look right here. Men, check this out. Did you just start feeling uncomfortable? Did you? Because this is not an action. This is a feeling, right? This is a feeling. I mean, when you sit here and go, love with brotherly affection, I'm not so sure about that. It says outdo one another in showing honor. See, because here's the thing. And men, we really struggle with pretending, right? Because we want people to think that we are strong and that we're powerful. That I love what Gene Simmons, if you've ever heard him, he's in the band Kiss. But anyway, he goes to men and says, you're both a powerful and attractive man. And he says that because what happens, that gets men's attention because men want to be perceived as being powerful and being attractive. But we put this persona out, this fake thing. And part of the reason that we hate the feeling stuff is pretenders love the do verses and don't like the feel verses. We don't like that so much. But I would make the argument that when you'll get rid of the pretending, golly, your wife and your kids will love you like they have never loved you before. And listen, affection flows in the absence of hypocrisy. That's what happens. So, and brotherly love, that's a feeling. That's weird, isn't it? We don't talk about that a lot. But look, my children, two of my sons live a couple hours away now. I don't get to see them very often. I got to see one of them yesterday. And just love being with him. And he's family. So, I mean, we cut down trees together. We went fishing. We ate steaks as big as my head for supper last night. I mean, just had an incredible day. Just loved being with him. And my other son, so much love being with him and with my daughter, Hannah, and with my wife, Lori. Loved being with them. But you know what happened? Man, they're family. And so, in a way, they're easy to love. But do you have that same kind of affection for others? That's why we talk about Southcrest being a family. I want you to know, listen, I miss you. I miss seeing you. Some of you I've seen standing in line at Home Depot or Walmart or Lowe's or someplace or other in the last few weeks. But man, I miss you. And there's this affection that I have for you. And there's affection that a lot of us have for one another. And that is the affection that we should all have for one another. Because you can't pretend and have brotherly affection. It just doesn't work that way. The people listen, when someone's, check this out, right? When somebody's honest with you, transparent with you, when it's obvious that they care about you, that they're concerned about your well-being, that they say, hey, here's some things I've struggled with, and you say, here's some things I've struggled with, what happens? There's this bond that happens. There's a bond that happens between you and them. And the first time it starts happening, it feels a little uncomfortable because you're not used to being in a relationship with people like that. But don't back off of it. Now embrace what God has for you. So let's keep going. It says, let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. And what happens is once you're being genuine, you quit pretending, and that you begin to love one another with brotherly affection, honor becomes very easy, because honor is easy once brotherly affection is in place. Excuse me. And then it says, next verse, it says, do not be slothful in zeal, be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord. And so, and you know, so here's the thing to do. This is so key. Surround yourself. Find some other people in your life who have all kinds of zeal for the Lord, who are fervent about him, who want to serve him. And that's what I love about our staff at Southcrest. I mean, I see the zeal that some of them have. I see that Reed and Luke and Chris have got this incredible passion for students, and they are so driven to help them. I see Rebecca, who's hosting Southcrest Live today, and I see her, and she loves seeing new people here and connecting with people and encouraging people, and she's one of those people. She's so encouraging. You know, she kind of makes all the boats in the harbor float a little higher because she encourages people. And Bailey Hamilton works with our children, and she and Courtney engineered. I mean, just the passion that they have for families and for children, and I love being around them. You know, I mean, these are the kind of people. There's a giant train wreck going on, and I'm sitting there going, oh God, that train wreck is awful. And they say, but look at the wheels; they flew up in different directions. Isn't that cool? I mean, they can find something good in everything, and so I love being around people like that. So make sure you've got those kind of people in your life. He says, do not be slothful in zeal. He says, but be fervent in spirit, serve the Lord. Let's keep going. And he says, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation. And so check this out. This is just walk through this. This is all we're doing this morning, right? So how do you continue to be hopeful? Because that's what a lot of us, we don't, hey, where do I find hope right now? How am I being patient in tribulation? Because, things are a little difficult and cumbersome right now, to say the least. How do you rejoice in hope and be patient when things are difficult? He says, well, do what? Be constant in prayer. And, we were talking about this the other night when we were up here and had some prayer time at our Noonan campus the other night. When we were talking about this, is that when you start praying and you become a person of prayer, and we're going to be a church of prayer, things just start falling in place in other areas of your life spiritually. When you start praying and acknowledging your need for the Lord, things just start happening. Things that you didn't imagine were going to happen. And then he goes on, he says, contribute to the needs of the saints. So he says, so let's be generous, let's give, let's take care of the people who are around us. And he says, and seek to show hospitality. And so what am I really talking about this morning from this passage? This is how to be the friend everybody wants, right? Don't you want friends like this? Don't you want friends who love you genuinely, who abhor what is evil, who cling to what is good? Don't you want friends who love you with brotherly affection? You know, I have two sons that are 18 months apart, and they are like that. They are very best friends. I look at them, I see brotherly affection. I'm like, man, I want relationships like that with people. Don't you want friends who are incredibly energetic about their relationship with the Lord? Don't you want friends who are always hopeful, who are patient in tribulation, who pray? Don't you want friends who are generous, friends who show hospitality? Don't you want a friend like that? That's the friend everybody wants. Listen, if you're in middle school, if you're in high school, this is the friend you're looking for. But I said this almost every week of this series, is that if this is the kind of people you want around you, this is the kind of person you need to be. This is the kind of person you need to be. Because listen, your relationships are going to determine the direction and quality of your life. Did you get that? I don't have it on the screen. Okay? You might want to write that down. Your relationships are going to determine the direction and quality of your life. That's what's so important. See, because there's this incredible power of belonging. And look, and right now, we're not able to gather at our campuses. But you know what we love to do? We love to belong. Now, when you first get somewhere and you say, well, I want to really belong there, and this is where I want to be, sometimes that's awkward at first. And look, we've got unprecedented numbers of people who are watching online, who are participating, who are emailing us and saying, hey, can you help? And I mean, so much good stuff that is going on. But it can't just be, here's some information and inspiration coming out on Sunday. It's got to be connection with people all during the week. And listen, I think it's great. I hope you're listening to podcasts of other guys who teach the word during the week. I hope that's great. You know, but you should belong here. And not just watch here on Sunday. Not just say, hey, here's a little bit of time. But no, you should belong here. And just I was telling you at the beginning today, when Lori and I first got married, even though we had dated for a couple years before we got married, you know, there's this new level of relationship that happens when you're married. And so there were some days I kind of felt like, well, this is kind of weird. I didn't know it was going to be like this. And even in that situation where I knew her and we moved into a new level of relationship, it felt awkward at first. And so when you come into a relationship with people, it may feel awkward at first, and it's going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen immediately. You can't say, hey, this is a place I want to be, and think, oh, it's going to happen in 3 minutes. No, it takes time. You begin to be genuine with them. Abhor what is evil, love what is good. Show them brotherly affection, outdo one another in honor. You start to do these things. You start to feel this way. And things begin to shift for you. And you find that because you're constant in prayer that you've got some hope and that you can see your way through difficult days. And you start belonging. It's huge, huge piece of growing our relationship with Jesus is belonging. So how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, not by pulling away, because when things start to feel a little bit more intimate, you go, whoa, I'm out, I'm leaving. No. That's take another step forward. And so here's the deal. We have tons and tons and tons of people that come to our campuses. And right now, we're not even on our campuses. Right now, we're watching online in our homes. We've got Southcrest at home on Sundays. Right now, that's what's going on. So how do we, even if we were all here together, I mean, could you show brotherly affection to everybody who's here? No, can't. You can't. So what do we do? It's easy. Groups. We get in groups, and here we call them life groups. But we're a groups focused church. Our children they get in groups when they're here, right? And our children's ministry is working on doing groups stuff with them in different kind of ways during the week. Our student ministry is actually right now is kind of blowing up, even though it's online and it's getting in groups. And this, although ordinarily we would say, hey, we're getting ready to take a break because it's getting ready to be summer. We don't know what summer looks like. But here's what we do know. We do know people need to be connected with one another. And so there's not a better time, I think, than right now for people to say, hey, I want to get in some kind of group, and it can be online. So if you're interested, I'm just going to put this up and leave it on the screen for a couple minutes. Groups at southcrest.church. So, hey, listen, I want to get in a group. I want to be connected with somebody. Overwhelming number of people saying, hey, listen, that is what I want. I want to be in group somewhere. And you know what happens right now online is that, you can be safe and you can talk and you can connect. You get online for about 20 minutes. You just catch up with one another. You talk with one another. I think that's a great way to do it. You know what else you do? You find somebody, you start a group in your neighborhood. And say, hey, listen, we're going to do this on Zoom, or we're going to do it in the backyard, do it in my backyard, and we're going to put some chairs out, and we're going to all sit 6 feet apart. But, if you're online, you know what, some of the things I'm seeing that people are doing online, some groups are doing worship together for the first time. Everybody's afraid to sing if you're in somebody's living room or den, but everybody hits the mute button on their Zoom call or on their Google Hangout or whatever they're doing. Everybody hits the mute, except for the person who's leading worship and singing. But everybody can sing along, and you don't have to worry about, I don't want anybody to hear my voice. I hear about people doing, saying, hey, look, we're going to get together a couple times a week. Look, do this. Just, how about if you were to do this? How about if you were to just find somebody in your group and call that person once a week and just say, hey, what have you been learning the Word this week? What have you been praying about? What can I pray for you about? 5-minute conversation. You could just do that. I don't know, but here's what's really important. Just start somewhere, would you? Just start somewhere, because you really are not going to grow in your relationship with the Lord unless you're Velcroed to the Bible and Velcroed to one another. That's what we've got to do. So right now, I realize we've got to be careful of social distancing and all that. But we talk about hospitality. What does that look like? Hospitality, you see something, your neighbor needs something done, do it. Don't go say, hey, what can I do for you? Don't say, make him come up with the list. You say, oh, his grass needs to be cut. I'm going to go cut his grass for him. He's out working on his car. I'm going to go see if he needs some help. Whatever. When you see something that needs to be done, do it for him. Order them some food. Have it sent to them, right? Just do something for them. Pick something somewhere. And when things are appropriate, that's what I'm talking about. Make plans for this. This is showing hospitality is so important. Invite people over. Listen, when you come to church on Sunday, you're coming to church on Sunday going, who can I invite over to my house today? Right? It means that if you're having a big pot of stew for lunch on Sunday, on Saturday, you pick up some extra stuff at the grocery store to put in the pot of stew so that you can come to church and go, hey, I'm inviting these people to come over our house today. And maybe they've already got plans. So you ask 2 or 3 different people, or maybe you go and say, you're having something else and say, but I'm just going to invite you to come over. You invite your neighbors to come over and just say, I'm just doing this to show you that I want a relationship with you. It's a big deal. Why is it a big deal? It's a big deal because that's what Jesus did for us. Jesus said, I want a relationship with you. And so he walked away from everything in heaven to come here to have a relationship with you, because the only way that he could do that was to be like you and like me. And he gave everything he had. That's how important relationships are. And so it's not seeing how many we can get or how few we can get, but it's saying, God, where do you want me to go next? Who do you want me to build relationships with next? because that's how we're going to continue to grow in our relationship with the Lord.